Baseball is a sport rich with history and legend going back to the 19th century when it was first invented by, well, that's a myth in and of itself that we'll get to. There are so many wild and fascinating baseball stories that books and newspapers have retold through the decades, and the line between fact and fiction often gets blurred. Today we'll discuss 10 of baseball's biggest myths, legends, and stories. And by a myth, I mean a traditional baseball story or piece of information that has been presented as factual in the past. But the actual truth of how it really went down is either in dispute, or for some anyway, it's been completely debunked. These are not exactly ranked like I usually do, but I'll try to save the more famous myths and legends for the top of the list. So let's get into some of these myths that you as a baseball fan have probably heard of before, and let me know which ones you believe and which ones are simply fiction. Number 10, Wade Boggs drank 107 beers in one day. Wade Boggs was undoubtedly one of the best hitters to ever play the game, retiring with over 3,000 hits, 1,000 RBIs, and a .328 career average. But he was also an interesting character about whom many stories have been told. He was called the Chicken Man because he ate fried chicken before every game. But the legend of the 107 beers is even crazier. The story goes that after one particular home game before a road trip, Boggs started downing beers in the locker room before heading to Logan Airport to board a flight with his team heading to Los Angeles. He kept drinking throughout the entire flight, then some more that evening when he and the fellas went out. Stories varied throughout the years regarding the exact number of beers, but they were usually between 50 and 100 beers. Finally, in 2015, Wade Boggs confirmed the final tally at 107 beers, 73 on the plane and 34 in LA.
1988-89, and we're leaving Boston. We're flying to LA. I was playing blackjack with some other players, taking a couple sips, and I'll take another one, and dealing, and take a couple sips, I'll take another one. So I was like two sipping beers, and card game's going well. And one of the players looks at me and goes, "Boggs, you realize you had like 51 beers. We've still got another hour to go." I said, "Well, let's see how many we can get then." The final tally was 73. 5 or 6 of us decided to go down to the Red Onion down in Laguna Beach. Wound up having a total of 107.
This is one of the few myths that has actually been confirmed by the person in question to be 100% true. But do you believe it? I would have thought 107 beers in one day would kill a person, but then again, we are talking about Wade Boggs, no mere mortal. Number 9, Babe Ruth hit a ball 587 feet. It was 1919 spring training in Tampa, Florida, when baseball legend Babe Ruth connected with an absolute monster blast that traveled 587 feet, or so the legend goes. And there's more to the story than just the homer. During the 1918 to 1919 offseason, Ruth was holding out on the Red Sox for more money after they had just won the World Series. He demanded a salary of $15,000 for the 1919 season. Boston was just offering $8,000. There were rumors that Ruth would retire and try his hand at boxing. Spring training began without him, and people feared the worst, when finally, Ruth and the Red Sox came to an agreement on a 3-year deal worth $27,000. Ruth showed up at his first game of spring at Plant Field in Tampa, a field that was converted from a racing track and was extremely large and difficult to homer in. The Babe stepped up to the plate for his first at-bat of the spring. He worked the count to 3 balls and 1 strike, then absolutely demolished a pitch farther than anyone at the ballpark that day had ever seen a baseball fly. It was crushed to right center field, cleared the racetrack fence, and according to one newspaper article, bounded away into infinity. After the game, legend has it that a group of sports writers had outfielder Ross Young, who would eventually join Ruth in the Hall of Fame, stand where he thought the ball had landed. They measured it with surveyor's tape, and the final distance was 587 feet. But is it possible a human being, even if it's Babe Ruth, could hit an early 20th century baseball 587 feet with a 1919 wood bat? Here's a look at where the ball would have landed at various MLB stadiums. For further comparison, the furthest ball ever hit in the StatCast era is 505 feet by Nomar Mazara in 2019, not even close to Ruth's blast. But someone has come close to the Babe. The farthest confirmed ball ever hit in a professional game was a bomb by Joey Meyer at 582 feet. I would not have believed it myself, but check out the video.
8-7 in a seesaw affair.
There.
Oh
the
my!
longest one yet.
Oh
Upper
my! The upper deck.
This ball is absolutely launched. I've never seen a ball fly off a bat like that one. So if Joey Meyer can hit a ball 582 feet, maybe the Babe actually did hit one just 5 feet further. What I would pay to see an actual video clip of that Babe Ruth bomb, but unfortunately it does not exist, and we just either believe the legend or not believe it. What do you think? Number 8. Jackie Robinson was the first black MLB player. Most non-baseball fans and even many casual fans probably just assume Jackie Robinson was the first black player to ever play Major League Baseball. After all, isn't that what he's known for? Breaking the color barrier. Well, he certainly did break the color barrier and destroyed the detestable Gentleman's Agreement, which was secretly adopted around 1887. At the time, MLB and minor league team owners agreed that no new contracts would be given out to black ball players. But before the agreement, a few black players did reach the highest level. After the Civil War, the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendments were passed, and the United States became, on paper anyway, a free nation, and for a while, it was accepted that anyone could play professional baseball regardless of skin color. The earliest known black pro baseball player was Bud Fowler, who played professionally for nearly 2 decades but faced enormous challenges as racism continued to run rampant in the country. He played in the minors and independent leagues, but never made it to the majors. A player who has been credited as the actual first black player to play Major League Baseball is catcher Moses Fleetwood Walker. He played in 1884 for the Toledo Blue Stockings, who were part of the Major League American Association at the time. Walker hit .263 in 42 Major League Baseball games. His brother Weldy Walker also joined the team after Moses and had 4 hits in 18 at-bats. Fleetwood Walker was the first man to play Major League Baseball who was open about his black heritage. But before Walker, a player named William White made an appearance for the Providence Grays of the National League on June 21, 1879, 5 years before Walker's debut. Research indicates that William White's father was a white plantation owner named William Jackson White, but his mother Hannah was one of his father's slaves. Unlike the Moses brothers, White was able to pass as a white man and did not have to deal with the racism prevalent at the time. Whether you consider Moses Fleetwood Walker or William White the first black MLB player, it technically was not Jackie Robinson. Number 7, Altuve wore a buzzer. Even in the modern day, interesting stories that cannot be fully confirmed still happen. We all know about the 2019 Houston Astros cheating scandal. A bombshell report in The Athletic exposed the Astros for using a camera, monitor, and trash can to steal signs during the 2017 season in which they won the World Series and the 2018 season as well. YouTubers and influencers across the internet scoured old videos and found all types of evidence proving that most of the allegations were true. But somewhere along the line, another rumor began to spread. Were the Astros also using buzzers placed on their bodies that would vibrate in such a way to let them know what pitch was coming? Were they evolving past the trash cans? This photo was a key piece of evidence that was floating around, showing Altuve jogging home after a homer, imploring his teammates not to tear off his jersey. YouTube and Twitter detectives identified a spot on his jersey where the outline of a buzzer might be seen. When Altuve was asked about why he didn't want his jersey tore off, he hesitated and gave multiple answers, eventually saying his wife didn't like it, and this only fueled the rumors.
You asked the teammates not to tear your shirt. Why?
What's that?
Did you ask your teammates not to tear your shirt? Why was that?
I don't know. I'm too shy. Last time they did that, I got in trouble with my wife.
Then, the response from 2017 Astros manager A.J. Hinch brought no comfort to anyone hoping that this was a false rumor.
We've heard reports about Astros players wearing buzzers underneath their uniforms. That's how they're getting the signal, what pitch is coming. I know the commissioner's office looked into this and they determined there was nothing to it. Can you assure us there were no buzzers or anything like that being used?
Well, the commissioner, we got investigated for 3 months, and the commissioner's office did as thorough an investigation as anyone could imagine was possible. I mean, I know he mentioned the emails and the texts and the messages, and I believe them.
His evasiveness and refusal to make an outright denial made even me believe that Buzzergate might be true, and I'm normally not a conspiracy theorist. But no actual evidence of any buzzers ever came to light, and players and coaches vehemently denied any existence of such an electronic device. Furthermore, Altuve was one of the few Astros hitters who didn't want to know what pitch was coming, and the evidence corroborates that, as he had the fewest confirmed trash can bangs of any regular in the lineup. When all was said and done, I felt the buzzer theory was probably untrue, but I can't be 100%, and in 100 years from now, perhaps baseball historians will look back at the legend of the buzzer and wonder themselves.
He was wearing a wire to his
He wasn't wearing a wire.
Number 6, Josh Gibson hit nearly 800 home runs. One of the great legends of the game, Josh Gibson was robbed of a chance to play in the big leagues due to the gentleman's agreement, but according to his Hall of Fame plaque itself, he hit nearly 800 home runs in league and independent baseball throughout his 17-year career. He was certainly the best hitter in the Negro Leagues and led his league in multiple offensive categories numerous times, including home runs 11 times. But scorecards and official statistics were not kept very well in the Negro Leagues, and the amount of confirmed home runs is only 166 in 2,168 career at-bats, approximately 1 homer per 13 ABs. Unimpressive ratio, but some MLB players have had an even better ratio, including record holder Mark McGwire, who averaged a bomb every 10.6 at-bats. That doesn't mean Gibson did not hit 800 homers, but the truth is, no one really knows. Even if he did hit nearly 800 bombs, how many were hit in official games? The Negro Leagues had erratic schedules that rarely numbered over 70 games. Are we counting spring training exhibition games and barnstorming games? And if we count those games, both Babe Ruth and Barry Bonds would easily exceed 800 home runs. There are other wild stories about Gibson, such as him crushing a home run out of Yankee Stadium and smashing 75 home runs in 1931, but none of it can be confirmed. What we know for sure is Josh Gibson was an amazing power hitter, and he likely would have had a fantastic MLB career, but whether he really hit nearly 800 home runs is anybody's guess. Number 5, Shoeless Joe Jackson and the Black Sox scandal. The myth might be that Shoeless Joe was innocent, or for some, the myth is that he was guilty, but as far as the official word goes, Joe Jackson, along with 7 of his teammates, were officially banned for life from Major League Baseball for throwing the 1919 World Series, and for this reason, Jackson has never been allowed to be on a Hall of Fame ballot. But even though the 1919 Black Sox scandal really happened, there is evidence that suggests Shoeless Joe was not an active participant, or at least tried not to be. In 1919, many of the White Sox players were disgruntled and the clubhouse was divided, set to face the Cincinnati Reds in the World Series. Some of the players decided to get with some crooked gamblers and agreed to throw the World Series in exchange for a big payday. There were rumors about the betting scandal before the World Series even began. The White Sox lost the series, and the next year, 8 of them were charged with conspiring to throw the series. A jury acquitted the 8 players, but new commissioner Kennesaw Mountain Landis banned all 8 from ever participating in professional baseball again. But the involvement of Joe Jackson, the star player at the time, has been in question for over 100 years. Jackson was not well educated, and some believe that he was taken advantage of by the other players, who pressured him into accepting the deal because without the star player on board, it would have fallen apart. Jackson, along with the other 7, accepted a $5,000 payment to throw the series, but there are many reports that he tried to refuse this payment twice. The other 7 players later confirmed that Jackson was never at any of the meetings discussing the throwing of the series. Also, many fans point to Jackson's performance in the series to indicate he was playing his best. He set a World Series record with 12 hits and had a .375 batting average overall. But he did hit .286 in games the White Sox lost and .545 in games they won. And the Reds hit several triples to his position in left field. And some White Sox pitchers said that the outfielders were slow to field the balls and oftentimes played out of position. But Jackson made 0 errors. A game-by-game and in-depth analysis of Jackson's performance in the World Series supports that he was doing his best, in my opinion, but it's just a matter of opinion. A book published in 2023 studied the long-lost trial transcript and provides evidence that Jackson's wife Katie actually deposited the money in the bank, but there is also evidence that Jackson tried not to accept the money, and his teammate Lefty Williams eventually threw it on the floor of Jackson's hotel room, forcing him to accept it. So, was Shoeless Joe really guilty of throwing the series? Or was he just in the wrong place at the wrong time without the ability to properly get out of this tough situation? He fought for his innocence for the rest of his life, but was never exonerated. Number 4, the screen was flipped for Gary Cooper in The Pride of the Yankees. For decades, the story was repeated that for The Pride of the Yankees, the life story of Yankee legend Lou Gehrig, actor Gary Cooper batted right-handed, then ran towards third base, and the screen was flipped in order to make it appear that he was batting left-handed and running to first, as Gehrig would have done in real life. We were told that he wore a reverse Yankees jersey in order to accomplish the effect. This was done because obviously Gary Cooper was a right-handed batter. The story was repeated in Cooper's biography by Jeffrey Myers. Since Cooper couldn't hit left-handed, the technicians devised an ingenious method of getting around the problem. They reversed the number on his uniform, had him run to third instead of first, and then reversed the print of the film. It sounds great, but did it actually happen like that? It's more difficult to pull off than it seems, as there's print on the baseball bat which would have to be removed or reversed, men in the background whose clothing would have to be stitched differently to look correct upon reversal, the catcher and infielders would have to be left-handed in real life to appear right-handed in the film, advertisements around the ballpark would have to be avoided by the camera, and special uniforms would have to be made, not only with reverse words and numbers, but with reverse buttoning, as traditional jerseys button with the left side overlapping the right. A full investigation was done by a baseball researcher in a blog that will be linked in the description, and it thoroughly proves, in my opinion, that Gary Cooper, in fact, batted left-handed throughout the movie, and either he or his double, Babe Herman, would swing the bat then run towards first base. Shots were not reversed in the film other than one short scene in which Cooper is throwing the ball as a first baseman in the minor leagues for Hartford. According to the study, this was the only scene in the film that was actually reversed, and the blog provides an enormous amount of evidence for this. One piece of evidence being you can see that this jersey buttons in the opposite fashion as it's supposed to, with the right half of the jersey overlapping the left. And there is a ton more evidence in this study, and I highly suggest checking it out if this is interesting to you. It is very comprehensive, and for me, it completely debunks the theory that Gary Cooper batted right-handed and ran towards third base. But the film did use a lot of movie magic that I would have never thought existed back when this film was made in order to make all types of stadiums come alive in the film, which is one of my favorite baseball movies of all time. Number 3, Abner Doubleday invented baseball. One of the biggest and most resilient myths in baseball history has to be the one about its origins. For over a century, it was taught that former Union Major General and Civil War hero Abner Doubleday was the man who invented baseball. Despite the amazing military career of Abner Doubleday, it was the invention of baseball that brought him the most notoriety throughout the decades. But did he actually invent baseball? The true origins of the game are not so clear, and that was the case even going back to 1905, when the Mills Commission was appointed to determine the origin of the game. The idea to appoint the commission came from Albert Goodwill Spaulding, who was offended by an article that traced the evolution of baseball to the popular English sports rounders and cricket. He stated that baseball was an American invention, owing nothing to English sports. And so it's not surprising that the committee that he commissioned stated in 1907 that the game of baseball was devised by an American hero, Abner Doubleday, in Cooperstown, New York, in 1839. Of course, that's the location today of baseball's Hall of Fame. But was that really where the game was invented? And did Doubleday have anything to do with it? Historians later determined that the results of the Mills Commission were absolutely unfounded. An investigation of the report shows many inaccuracies, conflicting information, and outright misinformation. The reality is Doubleday had nothing to do with baseball. He wrote many articles for newspapers and magazines during his lifetime and never mentioned baseball. Upon his death, he left many papers, letters, and even personal diaries, none of which described baseball whatsoever. There's no evidence he ever played or had any interest in the game. His obituary does not mention baseball at all. The only testimony that connected Doubleday to baseball came from Abner Graves, a man the report considered a reputable gentleman, whose word could be trusted. The reputable gentleman went on to shoot his wife and was committed to a mental institution for the rest of his life. There is evidence that another man, Alexander Cartwright, did play baseball, and he's the more proper father of the game, although even his role in establishing some of the rules of the game that we all know and love has been disputed. But he certainly had more to do with the early development of baseball than Doubleday did. There probably was never one singular inventor of the game, as it's a sport that evolved from other sports. But if there was, it definitely was not Abner Doubleday. Number 2, Ted Williams and the red seat. And now for another amazing home run story attributed to the legendary Ted Williams, one of, if not the greatest hitter to ever live. There have been many legendary home runs crushed throughout MLB history, but this one was so epic, the Red Sox decided to find out what seat the ball landed in and had it painted red. It happened on June 6, 1946, in a game in the middle of the season against the St. Louis Browns. The game was tied at 2 going to the bottom of the 7th inning when Williams stepped up with one man on and one out, and he connected against Browns pitcher Ox Miller with a blast that did not want to land. Apparently, it eventually did, landing in section 42, row 37, seat 21. A 502-foot blast. More modern estimates put the home run at closer to 530 feet when considering how far the ball would have traveled before hitting ground level. This makes the feat even harder to believe, even though, as we covered, it is possible to hit a ball that far. But it's hard to visualize even a great hitter like Ted Williams hitting a ball with that type of insane power in 1946. MLB players themselves doubt that a player using the equipment at the time could have possibly hit a baseball that far, even if it was Ted Williams. Hall of Famer and former Red Sox slugger David Ortiz has expressed major doubt, saying, "I don't think anyone has ever hit one there. You see how strong ball players are today, and I'm not saying Mr. Ted Williams wasn't, but you see how far guys are hitting balls today, and none of them can do it." Ortiz reportedly tried to reach the seat with a metal bat and couldn't get close. Another former Red Sox power hitter, Mo Vaughn, has also said that he couldn't get close, not even in batting practice. After smashing a 429-foot bomb, Tristan Casas has also expressed doubt that Ted Williams could have possibly hit a ball that far. But there is some hard evidence that Ted Williams did hit this amazing bomb, and that evidence is a hole in a hat of the man sitting in that exact seat. Joseph A. Boucher was hit in the head with the ball, and it went straight through his hat, leading to a trip to the doctor. He was seated in section 42, row 37, seat 21, the now famous red seat, and the seat remains the same distance from home plate now as it was in 1946. If Williams really smashed a baseball to that red seat, he likely got some assistance from the conditions, and research has shown that the home run came on a very windy day, and the lack of the famous Fenway press box in 1946 would have also helped the ball to catch the jet stream much more so than it could today. Many other factors have also been considered in a full study on MLB.com, in which it was determined that the ball had the ability to carry much more in 1946 as opposed to today. And the day that he hit this home run, the conditions were absolutely perfect for a monster blast to right center field. Of course, Williams still had to hit a tape measure home run that would have traveled 450 plus feet on a normal day. Number 1, Babe Ruth's called shot. And the most famous baseball myth of all time has to be Babe Ruth's called shot, a home run that's been talked about and reimagined in movies for decades. It has been presented as intense and dramatic in 1991's The Babe. And silly and ridiculously over the top in the 1948 film, The Babe Ruth Story. But what happened in real life? Did Babe Ruth really call his shot? The home run in question happened on October 1st, 1932 at Wrigley Field. The Yankees were up 2-0 in the series after 2 victories in New York. Cubs fans are pissed off and eager to see the Yankees get swept in Chicago. They are loud, rowdy, and mean, hurling insults at the Yankees, especially their superstar, Babe Ruth. Ruth was getting irritated even before the game began, as objects like fruit were thrown in his direction during batting practice. But he did have a great BP, smashing home run after home run. Lou Gehrig said he ought to hit one today, maybe a couple. Eventually the game began, and the behavior of the Cubs fans began to rub off on the players, and they started to trash talk from the dugout, yelling insults at the Babe. He responded with a mammoth 3-run home run in the first inning, but this was not the famous called shot. That happened in the 5th, with the game tied 4-4. The Cubs and Cubs fans continued to fire insults at the Babe, and he would fire back. He took strike 1 and held up a finger to the Cubs dugout. The next 2 pitches were off the plate, and then came in strike 2, and then he pointed. On the next pitch, Ruth smashed his second home run of the game, and legend has it, he hit it to the exact location he pointed. One writer took notice of the pointing and wrote the headline, "Ruth calls shot as he puts home run number 2 inside pocket," and the legend of the called shot was born. But no other reporter mentioned it, and no one else seemed to notice it until that article was written, and even Babe Ruth himself denied it in early interviews after the home run. Hell no, it isn't a fact. Only a damned fool would have done a thing like that. There was that second strike, and they let me have it again, so I held up that finger again and said I still have 1 left. Now kid, you know damn well I wasn't pointing anywhere. If I had done that, Root would have stuck the ball in my ear. I never knew anybody who could tell you ahead of time where he was going to hit a baseball. Well, that sounds pretty definitive. Ruth did not call his shot, and every Cubs player, including the pitcher Charlie Root, vehemently denied it all the way to their graves. But over the years, Ruth's story changed, and he began to embrace the called shot, confirming that he did indeed pick a spot, pointed, and hit the ball right there.
I looked down at center field and I tore it. I said, I'm going to hit the next pitch ball right past the flagpole. Well, good Lord, must have been with him.
The legend is so powerful, it has lived on despite video evidence. Yes, this at-bat was actually caught on film, and here's some of the footage of the Babe doing the pointing that witnesses confirmed during the at-bat. However, it looks like he's pointing towards the dugout and responding to the trash-talking Cubs bench. It's likely that the Babe did not exactly call his shot as portrayed in the movies, but he was certainly letting the Cubs know how many swings he had, indicating he had everything under control and was about to do something big. So in a way, maybe he did call his shot, just not in the overly dramatic way movies and paintings portray it. Either way, it made for an amazing story and is disputed among fans even today. Thanks for checking out today's video on 10 of the most famous baseball myths and stories that fans love to discuss and argue about. Let me know your thoughts in that comment section down below. Which of these do you believe, and which, to use a common baseball term, are complete horseshit? If you have enjoyed this video, check out one of the other countdowns linked above. Have a great day, and we'll talk to you in the next one.